Hey everyone, and welcome to this live training here on the Three Pines Leadership page. Maybe we're also on YouTube. We're streaming all over the place. I'm Coach Molly from Three Pines Leadership, and thank you for joining me for today's training. Today, we are going to dive in to a very timely topic for today. It's the end of October almost, which means we're going to start seeing a lot of organizations and a lot of companies rolling out their holiday marketing plans. Woo! But don't fret if you haven't started your plan or created a plan even in the first place. It's okay. That's what this training is for. I am going to give you my 3 biggest strategies and even some holiday specific tactics to help you ignite your business. I want you to step away from the crowd. I want you to be seen. I want you to be heard. And I want you to solve people's problems. It doesn't matter what your product or service is. What matters is that you recognize who your customers are and you understand them so deeply that they come only to you to solve their problems. And the holiday season gives us a ton of opportunities to deepen those connections with our people. So before we get started, we're going to define our words first. So we're going to talk about strategies and we're going to talk about tactics. A lot of people get these two things confused. We have to understand first that strategies are those top level bird's eye view kind of ideas. The tactics, on the other hand, are the actual tangible action steps that we have to take in order to make the strategy a reality. That makes sense? All right, so let's dive in to our first one. First, we're going to talk about what I like to consider the vehicle that's going to bring us through the holiday season, where the rest of these strategies can lay on top of. Because if we don't put this first strategy into play, the other ones aren't going to be nearly as impactful as we really want them to be in our businesses. So first strategy number 1, is how to create raving fans through email follow-ups. So overview, our big strategy is we're going to look at follow-up sequences. We're going to look at how we have a relationship with our customers. Are we just a store on the corner or just a store online? Or are we a place that's actually going to solve problems for our people? Does our business take on its own identity? Or is it literally just a place for people to buy stuff? If you just want to be a place for people to buy stuff, that's awesome. That's cool. I can't help you with that. What I do is I help you build deeper, lasting relationships with your people and with your community abroad. So here's an example. There's an incredible small business in my community that I absolutely love. And they know their customers so well that when the world went into lockdown, they took on a different strategy. They started listening to their customers in a different way than they used to. When they were listening to their customers, they understood that when people went into lockdown, this is a bakery we're talking about. When people went into lockdown, they weren't getting together to have birthday parties, which was a mainstay of this business. But what they were doing was they were making meals at home. So this amazing bakery pivoted their services. Yes, they still offered amazing custom cakes and cupcakes that catered to the nut-free market, but what they did as well with their pivot is they started offering sandwich kits, make-at-home pizza kits, and even cookie decorating kits so that there's an activity for people to do at home. And they did this because they listened to their customers. They understood the need of their customer and the pain point their customer was experiencing. They use these same strategies throughout the holidays. When it's holiday time, we think of holiday cookies, so they do a very different way of doing holiday cookie boxes. I'm not going to give away all of their secrets because that's for them to tell. But I just want to plant that seed so that you understand when you really deepen that relationship with your people and you listen to what they have to say, you're able to create solutions to their problems. So what I want you to start looking at are 3 things. First, I want you to see if you have automated follow-up sequences for things like abandoned cart sequences. A lot of times, especially during the holiday season, we're going to see our customers browsing throughout our web pages, and a lot of times in our e-commerce platforms, they'll put these items into their cart, and then they'll disappear, and we'll never see them again. If we've set up our system on the back end appropriately, we'll be able to have captured those email addresses for these customers so we can get back to them, and we can automate an email that sends out to say, hey, I noticed that you left such and such an item in your cart. Come back. That will boost your conversion rates by like 30% in some cases. So make sure you have that email follow-up for abandoned cart sequences. The second thing I want you to do is I want you to have a welcome sequence for your customers. And I want this to be specifically written for the holiday season. I want you to deepen that relationship with your customers by introducing them to your business here and now. I talk a lot about follow-up sequences throughout the year. That's going to be a different kind of welcome sequence. What I want you to think about for holiday specific is understanding those pain points of your people, or at least coming up with a couple of them from asking a couple of your customers, and using those points to draft your welcome sequence. And there are specific tactics and what we put in each of those emails, and I can tell you a lot more about that in our deeper dive on our holiday marketing strategies. But I want you to just make sure that you have some sort of welcome sequence that is geared specifically to the holidays. How do you solve your customers' pain points specific to the holidays? Examples of that could be you offer faster shipping, you offer more customization options at this time of year than you would other times. Make sure that in that follow-up sequence, you're also talking about how, what deadlines do they need to purchase by, things like that. Remind them, turn that email welcome sequence into your business becoming your customer's best friend. You'd send them a text message and be like, hey, just a reminder that shipping, if you want anything shipped within the United States, make sure that you make your purchase by next Friday, and then send them a follow-up on the Wednesday before just to remind them again. Don't want to be spammy. You're not just unintentionally sending emails out. What you're doing is you're walking them through that process. Think of it like you are your customer's best friend. And the third thing that when it comes to your email sequences is I want you to think about how you're actually asking this to become a conversation. A lot of times people will construct their welcome emails, their sequences, I'm talking more than just one email here, my friends. They'll construct that sequence as a one-way conversation or a monologue in many cases. Instead, what I want you to do is put in calls to action throughout your sequence, asking for feedback, asking them not only to celebrate your products, but also ask them, what are your pain points? We call this an ask campaign, and we can go a lot deeper into that in another training, but bottom line is, I want you to start engaging with your customers and asking them for their feedback. If we as business owners try to build our businesses in a vacuum without the input of our customers, we're going to fail. We need our customers, and we want to build that relationship with them so that we are actually serving them at the highest level we possibly can. It doesn't matter if you're selling products on an e-commerce website or you're a service provider. What you need to do is build that deep connection so that you become the only solution in this customer's mind. All right, the second big strategy I want you to think about is designing your campaign for conversion. A lot of times we like to fall into leaning on our design, leaning on an aesthetic, leaning on the number of followers we have, leaning on the number of our engagement rates. Bottom line, those things aren't directly paying your bills, are they? They're a lot of work. They're great. If you're able to create a huge, massive following, okay, you'll be paid from advertisers, you'll be paid from platforms, but that's not the reality for most businesses right now. Most businesses during the holiday season are doing two things. They're trying to get more customers, more new customers, and they're also trying to strengthen those relationships with existing customers by solving their problems so that they become the only solution. So when we're designing our campaigns for conversion, we have to keep that in mind. So here is my biggest tip I want you to take away from this point. Do not confuse the buyer. Don't confuse them. A lot of times we tend to put so many different calls to action on our landing pages or in our emails or whatever. We want them to do so many different things because as business owners, we want to serve as many segments of our market as possible. But I challenge you to do one thing. I challenge you to stop trying to make each piece of engagement about everyone in your market. Instead, what I want you to do is craft each message directly to a specific segment of your market or a specific customer in mind. When you do a deep dive with me and we do this big branding strategy report, we do a big deep dive as visibility hackers. When you do that, you start to understand who your customers are. Different segments of your market and how to speak to them because each of them has a different pain point. Each of them is at a different spot in their journey to wherever your product or service is going to take them. So when you're talking about designing for conversion, I want you to stop confusing people and speak directly to specific segments of your market. Okay? That could be a blessing for a lot of business owners because it means there are so many more pieces of content that you can now create. You can have 5 Instagram posts in a day, each of them selling the same product or the same service or the same ultimate end goal or the same path to get there, but each of them is speaking to a different part of your market. And so you're able to actually create a lot more content off of that is meaningful and that is driving people back to the ultimate goal, which is selling your products. The third strategy and the last strategy we will talk about in today's training is setting, or what I like to call getting seen, and using joint ventures and media and coverage and exposure to increase your sales and conversions over the holiday season. So I have found a ton of success, both for myself and for my clients, when we talk about creating joint ventures. So I could go on about this for hours. So I'm going to try and talk about only 2 parts. Only 2 parts. And that would be, first thing is connecting with other creators, other makers, other service providers in your niche, and looking at people who are not competitive against you. You're not going to look at people who are selling the exact same thing. Instead, remember how we were talking about pain points earlier and understanding our customers. So in this case, what I want you to do is look for other people in your niche, other providers in your niche, or other providers who may service people in your niche. And I want you to look for people who are not competitive, who are not trying to do the same thing as you, but instead people who are complementary to your service. Is there a product or a service that helps your ideal customer who is purchasing your product or service? Is there someone else who can help them get more success with your product? It can be a little bit tricky to understand this for some businesses, so you are more than welcome to join me for a deeper dive into this in another training. But I want you to look for people and services that are complementary to what you are serving. And the other part is that I want you to start spreading your message. And when you're doing that in cooperation with these other service providers or companies or whatever. You're doing that in a way that is sharing your message. Now let's talk about products and services for a second. We talk a lot about value, right? When you work for an hourly wage, you are literally trading your time for a dollar amount, right? Sometimes you can ask your boss for a little bit of a raise. Maybe you'll get a couple, like maybe 50 cents more an hour, but you're still trading your hours for dollars. That is your value. Now, if you wanted to increase that value, say we're talking about a babysitter, for example. The local babysitter is going to make a set dollar amount per hour, and all the other babysitters in the area are going to try and compete against that price. And all they're looking at is the price. Instead, what I urge you to do is look to increase the value of your product. There's an incredible success story from a woman named Allison who sells soap. She makes handmade soap. And she is able to make huge deals and huge sales because she no longer sells her product as individual products, individual soaps. Instead, she has increased the value of her product by bundling things together. This is also talking to those pain points that we were talking about earlier. If, say, we find out that our customer is trying to buy all of the different teacher gifts, for example. Well, if you offer a bundle that's going to give them enough soaps that they can give out to all of their teachers, well, there, you've just made it a lot easier for that customer to purchase your product because you've solved a big need for them. You're saving them time, and you're probably in the long run going to save them money. So I want you to think about increasing that perceived value, because that is what you're going to do when you're solving pain points, and then you start spreading your message. Because now you have an actual tangible solution to those problems. Now let's tie all of this back together, because I told you, point number 1 about creating raving fans is all about creating that vehicle that's going to get our customers from where they are to where they want to be. And that is building that relationship bridge with them. So when you're talking about doing exposure with another service provider, send an email out to your list about it. Tell them about it. Tell them how excited you are, because they are solving a pain point for your customer, but in a way that isn't costing your customer, that isn't costing you, the customer. Interesting. That will also help you with people who are sitting on the fence and they haven't yet decided if they want to fall in love with you. With that vehicle, that email sequence or the other thing about email sequences I want you to think about, here's a bonus point for you. So I want you to start throughout the holiday season, I want you to email your customers every single day. Remember, our emails are not designed to confuse people. So every single day, you're going to have one point that you're going to address. Maybe it's a really awesome product that is going to solve a pain point for your customer. Maybe it's a question that you have for your people. Maybe it's an answer to a question someone has sent you. Use that email time as relationship building, and recognize that someone's email inbox is a pretty intimate place to be. So if you're able to respect that and you're able to use it as a place to serve your customers and provide them with value, you're going to be able to have these customers not only just purchase from you on Small Business Saturday because they feel like it's the morally correct thing to do, but they're also going to come to you for every holiday on that calendar. They're going to start coming to you when there isn't even a holiday, because you know that customer so well. So I hope you can start putting these strategies into your business, and if you want to go on a deeper dive, just you know what to click. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm Coach Molly from Visibility Hacking and Three Pines Leadership. Thank you again, and I will see you next time. Until next time, remember, I love you, and be excellent too.